Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive, while also sharing with you our Native culture, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And I hope you'll do me a favor. Feel free to like and share these episodes. I so appreciate it. Yakuki.
I wanted to serve my country, but I joined the National Guard at 17 years old, and I went to basic training in between my junior and senior year. About 3 years in, I volunteered to go to Afghanistan, and I learned a lot about the Mongolian culture. I learned a lot about the Afghan culture. That opened my eyes that there's so much difference in the world, and a lot of people, they've never seen, just the privilege that sometimes we may have.
See and share our stories at togetherwe'remore.com.
Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, where we celebrate our stories, our people, and the rich heritage of the Choctaw Nation. I'm your host, Rachel Youngman, and today we're honored to spotlight a leader who embodies the Chutta spirit of faith, family, and culture. A veteran and the Assistant Chief of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, Mr. Jack Austin Jr. As Veterans Day falls in November, we proudly honor our Choctaw veterans and all who have served this country with courage and dedication. And today, we also celebrate a legacy of service passed down through generations, from the battlefield to the tribal council chambers, from the church pew to the community clinic. Jack Austin Jr. is a man who has walked a lifelong path of service, one shaped by family, by faith, and by a deep and abiding love for the Choctaw people. Assistant Chief Halito and Yakuki for joining us.
Well, Holly too, Rachel and Yakuki for having me on.
Let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up and what was your upbringing like?
So I was born in Hugo, Oklahoma, and my mother was from Idabel, Oklahoma, and my dad being from Valiant, both from McCurtain County. And they had lived there while I was young, and my dad had actually worked for the Office of Environmental Health through IHS, Indian Health Services. And so he had got a job at of all places at Tishomingo, and we had lived in Tupelo for, I guess, up until I was probably 4 or 5. When it's time for me to start school, he had transferred to Talihina. So most of my life, I've grown up in Talihina, Oklahoma there, and went to school and just grew up there and had some great friends, great experiences all the way from kindergarten all the way through my senior high school. And it was very unique, very small rural town. I think the population at that time was maybe 1,000, maybe 1,100.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. So that's we had we had one stoplight, which we still have one stoplight in town, and so
I love that.
oh yeah, and the now this is really going to date me, but the pharmacy, the town pharmacy there had the old soda style bar that you have seen in movies,
Yep.
where you could go in and get the old traditional malt or milkshake, and it is still there. It's not a pharmacy anymore, but it is still there, and so unique. And it's a quiet place. It just, I don't know, the ability to live in a rural place and grow up. You become close with so many people, so many friends, lifelong friends. And I've had the fortunate ability, my wife and I, to actually have our family grow up in the same region. We live in Tuscaloosa right now, which is maybe 20 miles away. But my kids have all went to the same school I got to go to and make friends. So it's been a unique experience growing up in that small town.
Oh, for sure. I'm all about small town America, people knowing each other and helping each other out when needed. And I remember growing up in a small town myself in Anadarko, Oklahoma.
Mhm.
If you didn't show up to church, they knew. So you'd like come in oh, were you okay last Sunday? Is everything all right?
Oh, and Rachel, you mentioned that you make me think about, and if you did something wrong, your folks or your kin folks knew about it before you even got home.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
well, and that's of course the days I can recall the days of the old party lines, and that really got me in trouble along with my friends in trouble. And so, uh, yeah, trying to explain that to kids nowadays, or even my older kids, which my oldest is 30, and trying to explain that to them. Really, you had these landlines, and everybody else was
Right.
on it, and yeah. But no, we all, I think families watched out for one another, and that's what
Yes.
I can. That's something that I can appreciate from small town living, and that's because if you were out too late, if you're doing something you weren't supposed to be doing,
Oh, yeah.
it did. I mean, yeah, your folks knew about it, and I, they just kind of helped keep us all corralled.
So true. So there are kind of pros and cons to the small town.
Oh yeah.
Well, you mentioned your father earlier. The late Jack Austin Sr. served the Choctaw Nation with great distinction, 20 years on the tribal council and decades in Indian health services. Can you share what it was like growing up with such a strong example of public service?
I believe he retired from Indian Health Service with 34 or 35 years. After a period of time, he had taken, I don't think much time off, maybe 6 months to a year, and then he decided to run for tribal council in our district, in District 7, and which he served 20 years, as you said. And all I've known, and I tell people this when different times they've asked me, it's just, how do you serve others so much? How do you, just so natural? And it is because that's what I grew up in. I grew up in a home with a dad and a mom that both, that's all I saw,
Mm.
was serving others. And I not only did I see it, but they involved me in that. So I knew and understood what the act of giving back to others, to serving others really was. And that was from a young age. I can tell stories now, both of them, that in the summer when there was no daycare, and there were obviously in small towns or small rural areas, there wasn't a lot of daycares. You had independent babysitters, so and the economy wasn't what it is even today. As a means of probably cost savings, I would be with them, one of them, on their job, riding around from one site to another at different times, not all the time.
Wow.
And so I would get to see the interactions that not only my dad and my mom would have, but just with the Choctaw people, and just to get to, for me, I guess I've been mentored my whole life to see that and to be a part of it.
That's beautiful. And honestly, I did a little research on your dad,
Mhm.
and there was so much, so many nice things said about him. And he was just obviously a very honorable man. So it must feel good to, come from that and know that your dad was such a great example for people. And in that case, what was he like in everyday life? What was he like as a father?
Well, I'd like to, I hate to categorize him as typical because I don't think there's a typical, but I would say, one of the great words he uses, he was always fair. And he was a man of his word. Um, he certainly, I learned my lesson about the displeasure in not telling the truth. And,
Ooh.
and yes, and that how important it is when you give your word to somebody, to
Hmm.
stand behind it.
Yeah.
But no, he was very fair, loving. I think of all the great things that I had a chance to do, and It's what I always talked about when I would visit with him. I always say, Dad, if I can just be half the person that you are with my own family, I'll be doing good, and I'll be lucky. And because they showed me to be involved in my family, be there and support them, however it is,
Yeah.
to do the little things, the little memory makers, I call it. And it's, we didn't, like I said earlier, the economy wasn't the best then. People weren't making a lot of money. So our entertainment was simple things of going down to the creek and maybe just
Right.
fishing, and maybe even, swimming down there, and having a picnic or whatever. I've been able to do that with my own children.
Yeah.
And even to this day, hey, when are we going to go to the creek and have some fun, and just, wait around. And now that's even been passed. I laugh, my wife and I laugh about it, because our own grandkids are doing that to them. And it's just like, so I don't know if that's good or not.
Paybacks. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, but
And
yeah,
those are the
yeah. I
best
mean,
memories. Your
mhm,
kids are not going to and your grandkids are not always going to remember that they got a Nintendo for Christmas
mhm.
or Xbox or whatever it is today. They're going to remember the times you spent together. And actually, Father's Day is around the corner right now when we're recording this. And I think about the dads so much during this time, about how fun they are and how much they spend time with us. And my hat's off to you and your dad for passing those things on to what is your legacy, that is your grandchildren and your children and all that.
Yeah.
I'd like to quote from our paper, The Biskinik, from December of 2022. The Choctaw Nation mourns the loss of a great man and leader, former Councilman Jack Austin Sr., who served on the Choctaw Nation Council for 20 fiscal years. He
Mhm.
took great pride in his Choctaw heritage and served his people with a servant's heart. So it really does sound like he was a great and honorable man. Is there anything else you'd like to share about him before we go on to our next topic?
Sure. I think, going back to our earlier discussion, prior to starting, I believe that started with my granddad. And just from the conversations of my dad that I've had, asking about my family and just asking what my granddad was like. My dad witnessed those same servant leadership qualities in my granddad, which then I mean, you talk about leading by example. I think he did as well. So I had to also give credit to my granddad, because just the stories I've heard, and I've told my dad, or I've kind of asked him those questions. Well, Dad, have you ever thought of the why he did
Mm,
that? And well, no, and I just a real quick story. This is when depression type years, family with children, hadn't no work, no nothing. My granddad gave them a milk cow. Now that may not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but that was a food source for those
yeah.
children. And at that time, and that's just one instance that I can mention, which there's many, but my dad saw that, and we would have that opportunity to discuss that. And I said, do you know why you take care of your people and you've taken care of us, and how that you give back? I said, you saw that in your own mom and dad, and you're repeating that, which is awesome. That's carried on. I now have the opportunity to do the same thing. So I hope that's, from my granddad all the way
Mm,
through my grandchildren. Hopefully that'll continue on.
for sure. And I'm sure it has and it will. What
Mhm.
what a man. What a man. Your family's legacy goes even deeper, with ties to historical moments like the Battle of New Orleans.
So I have this family tree document because,
Perfect.
yeah, so I have that, and I cannot. I hate to even try to pronounce this name, but I can definitely spell it. But there's a story behind that. Myself And one of the ladies, Miss Jeannie Porter, that works in my office, went. She went with me to a meeting. A young lady had reached out to me, and they were having a family reunion at one of the conference centers here in Durant. Reached out, and so myself and Jeannie went. I wasn't sure if they said we are related. Once I got down there and began looking at the family tree and other information, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, we are. They were the one that actually shared with me this gentleman was a part of that battle, or at least the Battle of New Orleans. Yeah. And so interesting. I think for me, it's just like when I looked at it, which he still had he did not have a Western name. His name was still in a Choctaw language. And so that's one thing I do not want to discredit or disrespect it by trying to pronounce his name. But yeah.
Well, he'll forgive you.
but
Is it
but
like
no,
3 syllables? Is it
so yeah, so I'm going to spell it for you. I'll give
okay?
you I'll let you have a shot at that. But it's
Okay.
HayAkicHubbe.
I pick.
Chubby, yeah.
Oh, he's a tubby or a
Chubby,
chubby?
Chubbe. Yeah. So hi.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
So many of us don't know those. The only one I know that sounds like that at all in my family is Tomahoya. And it is very hard to find those names because, as you
Hmm.
know, once they switched over to their English names and they had these new surnames like Smith and Davis,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
Well,
like, where
and
did
that,
your whole tubby name go?
yeah, and just what did that represent, and where did it come
Yeah,
from, and so
right.
forth. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so neat that you have that.
And she had a picture of Thomas LaFleur there, and she said, "Now I have a picture I want to show you," and it's a young Thomas LaFleur. And I said, "Okay." And so I went there and I said, "Oh my." She said, "What?" And I said, "Well, let me hold the picture up to myself." And I said, myself and my cousin, we look very much like him. And so,
Whoa.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was just like, yeah, I can't really deny any of this.
No, those
Yeah.
genes must be strong.
Yeah. Yeah. But one of the things is always, well, and when you're researching family, and there's always those surprises. And
Sure.
my dad's dad is Sam Austin. Well, I always thought, well, that's the first. No, his granddad was Samuel Austin, which came from this gentleman we're talking about that fought at the Battle of New Orleans, and which my
Wow.
granddad had fought in World War One. And so it's just like, wow, I didn't put that together. And so I have a son named Sam, and we got to talking about it. Oh, it's been a week or two ago. And he said, well, Dad, if I have a son, I'm going to name him Sam. And I said, well, let's count that. How many will that be?
Yeah, right. And,
Yeah.
and how many was it? Do you remember?
I think it was six, maybe seven. So,
That's amazing.
yeah.
For those listeners out there who may not know, can you help explain the significance of that battle?
Sure. That was 1815, I believe, in January began our
Hmm.
um, I know during the war of 1812, American forces led by General Andrew Jackson defeated the British. And because it was significant because it kept control, or at least preserved it, over New Orleans. Of course, New Orleans is a huge trade area, access to water, but
Hmm.
and that's where Choctaw warriors fought alongside American forces. That's again that is just another example of our Tushkas, our fighting spirit before we were ever considered American citizens, and
Right.
that's amazing in its own right. And so many people don't even know that. I know I've shared that while I
Yeah.
was in the Army, and they're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yes." Before I had to become my granddad had to become a U.S. citizen, and they were just taken back so much.
Yeah, especially when you think about it in the context of oh, here's the people that were here originally. And
Yeah,
then they have to register to become a citizen of the
sure.
land where they've lived for generations. Very strange.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you told people that, it sounds like when you were in the service, they were surprised by that. It sounds like.
They were educated on it, and it was very interesting, Rachel, because you did have people from. I had a young fellow that was in my unit from Haiti,
Mhm.
and they accepted. Okay, he's coming in. He's doing his service. They could accept that. That was maybe normalized.
Yeah.
They had heard, understood. We had other people. We had people from Jamaica. Anyway, make a long story short, I'm in, and to know that I had a relative only removed one or two relatives as far as my grandfather that wasn't a citizen of the United States, yet he was able to sign up and fight for America. And they were just so
Amazing.
taken back. They're like, well, this really isn't taught, in high
No.
school. And so, anyway, yeah. And so, of course, it sparked deeper discussions.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not that far removed that you had an
Mm-mm.
ancestor in that position. That is so close to today's time. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, yeah.
And what do you think? I've asked this question of some other veterans. What do you think about the idea that despite what had happened, so many Native Americans still chose to and wanted to, strived to serve our country? What do you think about? Do you think it was that whole Tushka spirit, that warrior spirit that they had within them, that was from
Mhm.
centuries of them going to battle?
Mhm.
How do you see it? What's it your viewpoint on that?
Of course, that's one of the questions I would love to obviously ask my grandfather. But I think yes, there's an element of it, the Tushka warrior part of it. I think being a Tushka is an element of it. I think another element of it or to it, obviously, there's I believe they felt a belonging to something, and that they had well, and my grandfather, he had already been through his Jones Academy and Armstrong experience and grown into a young man. Um, so he would have got to see where America was headed.
Mhm.
Despite that treatment he might have received in boarding school, he may have seen better treatment, I would feel like, but to feel like that
Yeah.
he and other natives would be accepted on the other side of the conflict or war. Maybe, and I'm really stepping out on a limb, but I wonder, was there an unknown element to the recruitment? Was there any promises to our native men and women that went in that on the other side, hey, we're working, you're going to be a citizen, you're going to be equal to me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Uh,
That's a yeah, that could be a very possible, right?
mhm, yeah. So yeah, I would love to do. If I had time, I'd love to dig in and write research.
I know. We just need like a time machine. I always say that. If we only had
Yeah,
a time
yeah,
machine.
yes. Uh,
Well, speaking of, let's talk about your own path of service. What inspired you to join the U.S. Army?
like typical high schooler, I was not sure what I wanted to do. Graduated.
Hmm.
Followed my friends to a junior college because that's what they were doing. Seemed like, oh, sure, thing to do. I went there and wasted what was it, 2 semesters, and I thought this is really not for me right now. And
Yeah.
I said, and I visited with my family, my friends, people that had went. I still had, of course, my dad was still alive, and my what I had two uncles that had served in World War II, and just talked to other friends, and because that had always been on my uh, mind, and so I decided to enlist, and
That's
yeah,
well, and no matter the reason, you served our country,
yes, yeah,
whatever compelled you to go, you were called to go.
well, and I do feel like I was called to go, Rachel. And I honestly, and this is one of the things I tell young people is that Uncle Sam helped me get my head on straight and mature a lot,
Yeah.
which I'm forever thankful and grateful for. You know, you take a kid out of Talihina of America, 1,100 people. I go see the world. I go see Europe. I see
Right.
things I've only gotten to read about and study in school. I can't tell you how many countries I've seen, and the historical landmarks that I've either trained around or have seen on a tour while being in the service and actually being able to touch it, see it, and not have someone tell you about it in front of a class was amazing. To experience the other cultures, not only within the military and the different men and women, their backgrounds from small towns, large cities, LA, New York, things of that nature. That was just foreign to me. To understanding foreign cultures, that I can't put a value on that for me. And the understanding and just the depth of what it did for me. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things military does for a young person, but there's a lot of great things it can do for people.
And to that, you hear that all the time where someone may go into the military and maybe they were having troubles at home or
Mhm.
rebelling or whatever, and they come back a
Right.
changed person. I can imagine what you all see out there. It definitely takes someone putting themselves out there, not knowing what can happen, and that has to be scary.
I was just thankful that I've had so many family members that I could reach out to and get the reality of it. And I think that's what really inspired me to approach our veterans advocacy group here of having a volunteer group of military men and women to visit with individuals if any of our tribal members within the reservation or even out want to know more about the military instead of just rolling the dice and going with a recruiter and not asking questions, having a person in front of them that they can ask any questions. I know that I think I valued that a lot from my family and friends because I could ask what I felt like was a dumb question and without fear of feeling that way and just what do I expect? Because like you said, you're going into this new environment, not knowing the unknown is, and you're going to be thrown into a group of people that you don't know, mixed cultures, mixed backgrounds, reasons they may have joined. Like I said, big city, small town, uh,
Right.
and yeah, and I've served right alongside of extremes. And what I mean by extremes is me from a rural country town to someone in the city that was a former gangbanger and that had their own reasons of being in the service and some of those men that I served with like that. I'm so thankful for them because they continue to serve and actually retired.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this series.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.